Welcome to today's ChiBizHub conversation. ChiBizHub, an initiative of World Business Chicago, is committed to serving Chicago's small business community. Our web series of ChiBizHub Conversation is dedicated to providing information and access to subject matter experts on topics important to you, our small business community. Today's conversation is about mentorship and the importance of professional associations in the age of COVID-19. We have a stellar panel ready to share why it's important to have a professional mentor and how to get more involved with professional associations. Before we begin, a quick reminder that you can turn 24/7 anytime to our special COVID resource page where you'll find updated information on webinars and conversations like today's, along with links to loans, grants, and other support available to you. Visit chibizhub.com/COVID-19. It is now my pleasure to invite Jasmine Garcia, Program Manager, ChiBizHub, to begin today's conversation.
Thank you for that incredible introduction, Andrew, and welcome everyone. We're really excited to have you today. I feel like we kind of took a little break with our webinars, but we're back on it. We're really excited to be here. Give you a little bit more background if you're new to joining us about what ChiBizHub is. So ChiBizHub is the city's online portal that links our expert service providers to Chicago's small businesses, entrepreneurs, and startups that are looking to start, grow, or scale their business. In the wake of the coronavirus pandemic, we made these webinars right for you today where we can use our business resource providers and the community and connect you all together so you can kind of have all your questions answered and network and get to know one another. Just so you all know, we're all in this together. Please visit ChiBizHub. Kendra and I are really excited to share with you all that we're up to nearly 175 business resource providers across the Chicagoland area. This is really great news because we're almost to our goal. We have a lot of individuals and organizations that are really excited to just really help you out. And so with that said, if you haven't signed up for ChiBizHub's newsletter, e-blast, please do so. We'll make sure to put that information in the chat box. And without further ado, I'm going to kick it off to my colleague, Kendra, who can share more about the incredible panel that we have today.
Thank you so much for that warm introduction, Jasmine. I greatly appreciate it. So we, again, have a stellar cast on board for you today. And so I will go through introductions of each panel member. And then Jasmine and I have prepared some questions that you all have been asking us throughout your time when you send us questions. So without further ado, I would like to introduce this stellar panel. First and foremost, I want to start with Miss Christina. So Christina, we appreciate her so much. She actually serves as one of the business resource providers on ChiBizHub and has been an advocate for us, so we greatly appreciate her. She is also the founder of the Winners Club, LLC, a business development consulting company that offers business coaching, business plan and pitch deck creation, grant and proposal writing, web development and design, and social media marketing. Her love for her family's business and science led her to achieving a bachelor's degree in biophysics from Chicago State University and a master's of public health from St. Benedictine University. Ultimately, as an adult, Christina worked for her family's business for 8 years. She later stepped down and she took a position as the Director of Business Development in 2017 to take an opportunity with Goldman Sachs' 10,000 Small Business Program. This is where her true passion was revealed for small business. Christina currently holds the position of Outreach and Alumni Director for the 10,000 Small Business Program. So thank you so much again for joining us. Our next panelist, Melinda, is known as MJ the Closer. She is a Chicago realtor who is able to provide her clients with an exemplary experience through superior service because of her extensive market knowledge, corporate marketing background, and long-standing real estate investing experience and training. Melinda holds a Bachelor's of Science degree in journalism and a Master's of Business Administration degree in marketing. She brings 20 years of brand marketing and business management experience from Fortune 500 companies and top brands like Coca-Cola and Energizer. Melinda is an active member of the National Association of Realtors and Chicago Association of Realtors. Melinda also serves as a member and active participant of a number of professional and nonprofit organizations, including the Entrepreneurship Director of the National Black MBA Association, the Chicago chapter. And she's also a volunteer with the Black Ensemble, Good Life Young Adults Ministry, as well as Fellowship Baptist Church. And may I add, the National Black MBA Association is now a business resource provider on ChiBizHub. So thank you again for joining us, Melinda. And last, but certainly not least, this powerhouse that I'm about to introduce is Michelle. Michelle is the investor and founder of a phenomenal organization. So as an entrepreneur, she understands the importance of success and capital and networks to grow your company. So prior to founding Elan Strategies, Michelle worked for the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the largest Hispanic business organization in the United States, managing fundraising efforts with Fortune 500 companies in the energy, technology, hospitality, and consumer goods industry. She was a part of a team of 2 in charge of fundraising over $6 million a year from corporate America. Wow. Michelle has also served as a member and active participant of a number of professional and nonprofit organizations, including Kappa Delta Chi sorority. Also, she has served in the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute, Alumni Association, Type 1 Ventures, and Stella Angels. And most recently, Michelle is a Tory Burch Fellow for High Growth Female Entrepreneurs. She is also an alum of the Inner City Capital Connection, an executive program focused on connected, underrepresented founders with capital and networks to grow their businesses. Wow. Thank you all again for joining us. We are super excited. And so Jasmine and I really want to learn a little bit more about each of your organizations and some of the communities and neighborhoods that you serve. So Christina, if you wouldn't mind starting us off, telling us more about 10,000 small businesses and the communities that you serve.
Absolutely. So thank you all again for having me. So Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses, what we do is business education for established small business owners, and we serve the greater Chicagoland area. So the way that our radius is set up is if you are 3 hours, driving hours away from our site location, then you can take advantage of our site. So we have businesses in Wisconsin and Indiana, downstate Illinois, St. Louis, which is a little over 3 hours, but we have had some businesses in the St. Louis area as well. So that is our territory, the entire greater Chicagoland area.
Awesome. Michelle, if you wouldn't mind sharing with our audience a little bit about your organizations that you've been a part of and some of the neighborhoods and communities that they serve.
Yes. So I'm going to speak from 2 perspectives, as an entrepreneur and then also as an aspiring investor. So as an entrepreneur, especially as a Latina and a woman of color, navigating the world as a founder, there are different kinds of challenges. And one of the massive resources that really changed the trajectory of my company was being a part of the Tory Burch Foundation Fellowship. And this fellowship is a yearly fellowship for 50 high growth companies where they provide you access to a premier national network, $5,000 in grant funding, so you can invest in yourself as an entrepreneur. And also you are invited to be a part of the Tory Burch Foundation, be at the Tory Burch headquarters. And as an entrepreneur, when you are like really eating what you kill, you don't always have the luxury to stay in these really nice and treat yourself well. And so it also connects you with a group, a sisterhood of other women who are going through the same things and the same hurdles. So that's one piece and one resource that I definitely want to make available, and I'm going to be harping on it throughout our conversations because applications are currently open. They are due November 12th. And the second piece that I was a part of was the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And this is an organization that represents over 4.2 million Hispanic-owned companies. And their main goal is to advocate for minority-owned firms and ensure that our companies are having access to procurement contracts within corporate America. And so everything from their national conference to their massive networks into corporate America, those are 2 things that can really be leveraged. So just two resources to highlight. And I think on the investor side, I would really talk about Tory Burch's capital program. So one of the biggest challenges that entrepreneurs face is access to capital. And so they've built a partnership with Bank of America this year. I think they've currently put it on pause due to COVID and a lot of the funding that has been allocated through like federal programs. But this is an easy way to access funding. So wanted to highlight that as well.
That is phenomenal. Melinda, would you mind sharing a little bit more about the National Black MBA Association and some of the communities that you all serve here for the Chicago chapter?
Definitely. So the acronyms oftentimes frighten people. So the National Black MBA Association, we were actually founded here in Chicago at the University of Chicago School of Booth in 1970. And this year we're celebrating 50 years as an organization. There are more than 40 chapters around the country, but here in Chicago, we rank as one of the top 3 largest chapters in the US. So here's what's so awesome about the National Black MBA, is that our focus historically has been on the creation of opportunities, wealth building, and growth, regardless of where you are in your trajectory. Meaning from high school students to professionals to entrepreneurs, there's a platform within the National Black MBA where we take all of the expertise, because so many of our members are professionals in corporate America, and we refunnel and recycle that expertise back into the network. So as many of us transition in and out of corporate America, I mean, what better place than to be amongst your peers that are building brands, executing great strategy, and being able to tap into that skill set within the same network. So whether you've got children that are in high school that you want specific curriculum, we've got weekend curriculum that exposes to them different career paths that involve scholarships as well, and excursions for them to meet people in different positions. Because oftentimes as minorities, and Michelle spoke to this, that oftentimes we don't see what we believe. And the National Black MBA is big on providing you access to those opportunities that you don't see on a regular basis. So wherever you are in your career path, the National Black MBA is a platform to leverage for networking and wealth building.
Sorry, always the mute button. So we want to get right down to it, right? What was our title? Professional mentorship opportunities, why are they important? And so we want to dig deep a little bit more into exactly what professional mentorship opportunities does the organization that you represent offer to the small business owners, entrepreneurs, and professionals right now. Would you like to get us started, Christina?
Sure. And you know what? I'm actually going to elaborate a little bit on the first question. I literally answered the question and realized I didn't really share that much information about the organization in general. And then I'll go into the mentorship question. So just generally speaking, Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses is a national program. I spoke more to the Chicago chapter since we're in Chicago, but our reach is national. So there are 19 physical site locations around the nation, and then we have a online form or a national form for people who are not within proximity to a site location. So the purpose of our program is to really serve established small business owners. So the way that we define that is that you have to be in business 2 years. For minority businesses, doing at least 100K in revenue, and then have at least 2.5 employees. So we really work with businesses who know what they're doing, but you need support in getting to that next level. How do I take it up a notch? How do I create more jobs? How do I generate more revenue? And so we have a 15-week program completely funded by Goldman Sachs. So it's free to any business owner who is accepted. Right now, we're at about, by the end of the year, we'll probably close out with the 10,000, but they're going to continue to this program will continue on past the number 10,000 small businesses. So not only do you get the local community of almost 800 Chicago-based businesses, but you get the national community of business owners. So you take the things that you learned, you can do business with these companies around the nation. So it really is a phenomenal program for those business owners, again, you're established, you know what you're doing, but I want to get to the next level and I need support in doing that. And so that takes me into how we deliver and what mentorship does in the facet of our program delivery. So the 15-week curriculum is very structured. You are literally touching each component of your business, from leadership to HR to marketing to operations and processes. We take a very deep dive into the financial side of things, forecasting, if you're looking to get capital, really understanding what that looks like for your business. So mentorship is one of the components of this program that makes it special. So, program delivery is great. You have the time, the touch point in the classroom, but for a lot of businesses, this is going back to school and really understanding how to really implement what you're learning in class into your business in a way that makes sense can be tricky for people. So our program has business advisors or mentors that work with you on a weekly basis. So we are touching you in class on a weekly basis, and then the mentor or your business advisor has a one-on-one conversation with you every week to make sure you really are grasping the information that is being shared with you and able to relate it to your business specifically.
Melinda, would you like to go next?
Sure. And I'm going to flip my screen so that people can understand me. Definitely. So from a mentorship perspective for the National Black MBA, as I mentioned before, we actually support at various levels, from high school students looking to understand occupations and what does that look like, pairing them with a group of members at different levels, as well as corporate partners in relationship with them. From an undergraduate and graduate perspective, we do the same. Oftentimes people can make a decision about their undergraduate studies, but they don't necessarily understand what are the things they should consider as they want to transition to a master's level of education. So we pair you and coach you in a formal program to help you with the decision making and the things you should think about as you consider graduate programs. Then moving onward, if you are a professional in your working career and you've been in your job under 5 years, as Christina talked about, how do you scale up? How do you prepare yourself to get to the next level in your career path? Or how do you reinvent yourself if you're making a decision that you're going to change as a professional? We provide the resources in partnership with our national partners. And one thing I want to add there, the National Black MBA has the largest representation of relationship with Fortune 1000 companies. So our access pool for opportunities for careers, for coaching and development and mentoring is expansive. For those like myself that was in corporate America that made the transition from corporate to entrepreneurship, that this has been an excellent opportunity for me to craft my networking skills, to establish what's my elevator speech. And as we talked about with these awesome programs that you guys have mentioned, Torch Birch, as well as Goldman Sachs, we also, while we don't own those spaces and we respect that those are your areas of expertise, we have relationships in those spaces as well. So what we are really good at is creating the space for the right connection and to establish the right relationships, which I believe we all will agree, access to resources, skill sets, and time is all about the relationship and the networking.
Thank you, Melinda. And Michelle, I know you have a lot to share about your mentorship experience with the Tory Burch Foundation.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is kind of cover some eligibility pieces because this application is live. I would love to see all of the folks who are on this webinar apply. And so in terms of just like applicant criteria, you do have to be a woman identifying entrepreneur that holds at least 51% stake in the company. You also have to be 21 years or older. The company needs to be based in the US and it has to be a for-profit from any industry. So it is industry agnostic. It does need to be early stage. So anywhere from 1 to 5 years, generating revenues minimum of 75,000. And I think they've just lowered that to increase accessibility. And they must be, again, like incorporated in the US. And I think I talked about it earlier, but being a part of the Tory Burch Foundation Fellowship transformed the trajectory of my business. One, I think it provided me a lot of access to these, to other women and who are going through the same process. And being an entrepreneur is very lonely, right? Having to talk to someone around your pricing strategy or how to deal with clients who are being challenging or how to build out contracts. It's nice. It's really helpful to work with other or have a network of other women who are doing this kind of, having these kind of challenges as well. I think that's one piece. Another piece, when you do become a Tory Burch Foundation Fellowship, I think I talked about it, they take you to the headquarters for a week long, just 7 days of programming. You meet with top experts who teach you about everything from like speaking in public to building your brand to e-commerce to how to be financially fit. And last year, we were also partnered with folks like Google to understand business analytics, or with Facebook to understand how do you do small business advertising. And then I think the last piece that was really powerful is that Tory Burch, as a founder herself, like she talks about this all of the time, but the only reason she started the company was to build a foundation to empower women. So they are fully committed to opening their networks and their resources. So if you ask and reach out, and if there is someone within their network that can help you access capital or help you access a more efficient supply chain, they will make that introduction. So I think just those two pieces I wanted to cover.
Thank you. Thank you. Empowerment, reinventing yourself. I mean, some dynamic things that we're seeing. And so I want to talk a little bit more about each of you and your personal journeys with mentors. So I know that each of you are business professionals in your respective fields. So have you all had mentors, or do you currently have a mentor? And if you can just elaborate and tell us, how has that particular mentor had an impact in your professional life? Michelle, would you mind actually sharing? I know you've already kind of overviewed us.
Yeah, of course. I have had lots of mentors. I think like as a first generation professional and college student, someone who comes from a low income background, like all of the things that I'm doing now are like breaking any stereotypes, right? Like without investment from mentors, advisors, and advocates, like I wouldn't be where I am today. And so a couple of mentors that come to mind is a woman by the name of Nina Vaca, who runs a company called Pinnacle Group. She's constantly one of the fastest growing Latina-owned and women-owned companies in the country. I think she's valued at like $1 billion now. And so I had the opportunity to meet her when I was at the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and she was at the head of the board. And she was the person I wanted to be when I grew up. And I was fascinated by her. And we've really just built a relationship over the years. I showed her that I was capable. I demonstrated my worth. And through that, she kind of took me under her wing. Actually, one of the reasons I found out about the Tory Burch Foundation Fellowship is Nina and Tory were under the Obama administration, were entrepreneurship ambassadors around the world. And so that was, I mean, she's helped mentor me as I've, again, gone through really challenging business opportunities, but also as I'm thinking about next steps. I think another mentor that comes to mind is a man by the name of Ron Estrada, who is at Univision. Jasmine is smiling because he knows it from our days in DC. And again, someone who comes from a really similar background and has now is at such a senior level within the media kind of world, and has just helped me everything from how do I deal with a really challenging situation, maybe like around sexism and my client not treating me well. And he just advises me through some of those pieces. But also I think one of the big value adds of mentors is like, they have so much access to opportunities. And if you're on their radar, they can help pull you into those spaces. And when you're not in the room, they fight for you. So just two mentors that I think have transformed my life.
Wow, they've done a phenomenal job, definitely. Christina, would you mind sharing a little bit about your experience with having a mentor and how they've impacted your life professionally as well?
Absolutely. So my journey is a little different. So I come from a family of entrepreneurs, and my family owns the oldest Black-owned compounding pharmacy. I think it's in the nation. We haven't confirmed that, but definitely in Illinois. So I've always been under the wing of an entrepreneur, to be quite honest with you. But what's interesting about that is, as a young, because I'm a little younger, like people don't even really always know my age because I come off as older than I am, but people seek me as a mentor, and I have a hard time finding mentorship for whatever reason. Like when people this is just my perspective, everybody's journey is different, but for me it's been hard to find, aside from my uncle, who is the owner of the business. He's been my consistent mentor, but mentorship is really, really a powerful tool. I think Michelle hit it right on the head. Any opportunity that you will get in business will come through a person. So in building the mentorship pool that you have, you really can now pull from these people. What I will say is, I've had several mentors. I can't speak to the flourishing of the relationship like Michelle can, and I'm kind of salty about it, honestly, listening to it. Like, I got to do a better job, because what I realize is it's incumbent upon you as the mentee to really withhold that relationship, and that's my struggle, just a personal struggle of mine. I'm going. It's hard for me to make time for it, but the value is so vast, and I've seen that with just the familial form of mentorship and just connections and being introduced to these different people in business and naturally building relationships. So that's my story. Again, a little different, I know, but value is 100% there. My understanding is definitely there. My follow through isn't as great.
No, that's a really good point that you and Michelle have highlighted. How do you stay on your mentor's calendar? So maybe that could even be another webinar we can do, because they're so busy, but you do need to have that connection with them so they can pour into you. Melinda, would you mind telling us a little bit about your experience with your professional mentorships that you've had?
Definitely. I would echo both these ladies. I feel like I'm somewhat of a hybrid of the both of you in this session. So what I learned probably, I would say a little under 10 years ago when I became an entrepreneur, is that the first thing you have to do is qualify the needs you have and what the gaps are. And I think oftentimes we throw mentorship around loosely, but there's such a spectrum. So as an example, I went through an exercise with a coach. That's another conversation around, what are you looking for? Are you looking for an advocate? Are you looking for a mentor? Are you looking for a sponsor? And understanding which of those you need, and you'll learn that you need all of them. Not only what is your gap, but what value can you bring to each of the parties in that space? And so I believe, and what I learned is, I'm able to sustain the relationships I have, because not only am I seeking and gaining value, I'm constantly looking for where I can provide value back to my mentor. And so when they know they can lean in some spaces that you are skilled at, it makes it easier for those conversations and for you to remain on their calendar. So an example would be, my first real mentor was early in my career. I was in undergrad, first job working at an advertising agency, and was really struggling. And my director at the time left the company and relocated out of state. A little backstory, I'm from Mississippi. That's a whole nother conversation. And she said to me, "You're never gonna live your full potential here." So what she did was she pretty much wrote a job description for me for my first corporate job. And when I asked her why she did that, she said, "When I left, you called to check on me, you sent me Christmas cards, whenever you read a great book, you shared it with me. So you demonstrated that you had the foresight and the ambition. That meant I was willing to step out on a limb. And it was in that experience I learned it wasn't always about what place can you gain, what can I gain in placement in the relationship with you, but what value can I bring to you in a space that you may not be skilled. So I would caution people, when you think about mentorship, think about the relationship you're seeking and what value can you add to the other party.
I love it. I love it. And I feel like this is the perfect segue. I mean, I think everyone definitely covered the importance of having a mentor, the impact that it's made in their personal careers and in their lives. I'm already so motivated, but as I was mentioning, Melinda, you are a perfect segue, I think, to our next question about, what is your take on viewing ourselves as a CEO of our own personal organizations, of us, and having multiple mentors serve as board of directors, perhaps? And I know you touched on, right, like the advocate, the sponsor, and the. Can you actually start us off with that question?
Sure. So I believe as leaders, especially of color and women, it's a responsibility we naturally inherited, whether we choose to operate in that capacity, whether it be the CEO of our companies, oftentimes as we're first generation. And in that instance, you're a leader by default because you've made a decision to take a path different than what society says you should. And with that level of responsibility, you have to decide personally, is this a part of your value proposition statement for yourself and your purpose here on earth? So I believe as CEOs and leaders in the space that we exist, we owe it to the next generation. We owe it to our fellow sister and other minorities to create a platform for them to grow as well. And that, I think, is only viable when we show up in the spaces that are uncomfortable to create comfort for everyone else. So yes, I believe when you are a leader in this space, a part of your responsibility is the leadership, is the growth, is the vision, is the inspiration for everyone else that comes alongside of you and that's going to follow you.
Thank you, Melinda. Michelle, would you like to go next? You can.
Yeah, absolutely. So I struggle with that question a little bit because I think one of the things that has plagued me basically all my life, and like still it's something that I work through, is imposter syndrome. Is like fully believing that I am, right? I mean, I like had been running this company for almost 3.5 years, and I think that it was really going to therapy that really fully helped me like understand my value, that I'm not only adding to my clients, but that I'm adding to society. I think it's really challenging when you don't see people that look like you in positions of power. And I think that's why having role models like Sonia Sotomayor as the first Latina Supreme Court Justice, or having like Black women in corporate America, like, are so important. So that, I think, is the first hurdle, being able to believe it and then constantly telling yourself that. I think it's an exercise of like, you are amazing, you are worthy, you are smart enough, you belong here, right? And then after you get over that hurdle, which is a lifelong journey, is showing up fully. Because I think one of the things that you didn't mention this, I think in my intro, but most recently, I'm currently at Columbia Business School. So I'm pursuing my MBA, and there are maybe 35 Black and Latino students within our 650 person class that come from an insane amount of wealth, like so much power, so much like run countries, like that kind of, and so like one of the things that has become very much evident is that everything that I represent and all of my experiences are so valuable, because there are so few women, there are even fewer women of color that navigate these spaces. And in just like a purely business sense, like we have a competitive advantage that many of the white males who are dominating business, who are entrepreneurs, who are investors, like really don't have that insight. So that's another piece, like the value of showing up fully. And I think the third piece, and I think I really loved the way Melinda talked about this, because it's something that most recently I've thought about, like mentorship in a different way, is like, how do I add value, but how am I also strategic, right? Because one person is not going to serve for all aspects of life. Like there is absolutely someone that I call when I'm having challenges around like navigating these really white male dominated spaces with a ton of privilege, who is a white male. And he's like, listen, Michelle, this is some guidance and some insight. And then there are also other spaces when I'm thinking about entrepreneurship or as an investor. So understanding like who those people are, and just at the end of the day, like human connection is the most important, powerful thing that you can have. Like building a human and real connection with these folks, like they're not just mentors, they're also going through their own things. And I like remember one of the things that I mentioned her earlier, but Nina Vaca, in 2018, I grew my business into Latin America. So I spent a lot of time in Peru, and I sent her this like postcard. It must have cost me like $2. And she has it to this day. Again, this $1 billion owned company, she has that little postcard that I gave her in her office, just as a reminder of our friendship. But yeah, hopefully that was helpful.
That was incredible. Thank you. Christina, would you like to share?
Sure. So just as far as, I guess, when you really accept you're a CEO, I think that was the question. Okay. So I think that part of it has to do with your belief system. For me, faith plays a big part in anything that I do, because nothing is really, I mean, any business idea, any form of entrepreneurship holds some level of risk. So I think that once you accept your purpose and you've done your due diligence and just seeking God for that clarity or direction, and then, like Michelle said, giving it your all, 100%, it can't do anything but turn over. If you're consistent, if you've done your due diligence, if you are building the relationships, you're keeping a mentor or a coach or an advisory board is what I have. Just people in professional places and spaces who can continue to pour into you and guide you. Stand in your truth. You're a CEO. I think that even what's interesting is in working with the Goldman Sachs program, in us noting these businesses as established. So they understand that we call them established business owners who have to be qualified to come into the program. They even still don't feel that they're CEOs. Most of them come in struggling with the sense of, I am a CEO. I really am a owner of this business, and I have to walk in what that means. So I think it's a phased transgression of, just confidence, understanding, faith, and just a mixture of all of those great components. And again, as far as an advisory board is concerned, which is a different form of mentorship. Okay, I didn't think about that. I didn't think about it from that perspective until Melinda said that, even breaking down just different forms of it. It's like, okay, maybe I do have mentors in different facets, but an advisory board is phenomenal because, these are people who have bought into you. They believe in you. I believe in what you're doing, and I want to add the value of support from my professional lens that I can. And just like you said, Melinda, you absolutely, what can I do for you? Like you is it something, the services that I offer, right? So as being a part of my advisory board is absolutely reciprocity there, and you should be looking to always figure out how you can serve. Like, I believe in servant leadership. I'll close with that. So even in thinking about just being a CEO and thinking about bringing in mentors and different people to support you, servant leadership, always be in a position of humility and willing to serve and help, and people will willingly do whatever you ask them to do because you hold that posture. So that's my answer.
Wow. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, let's talk about 2020 and what we're actually undergoing with COVID-19. We know that these are very difficult times, and people are learning to be more cost effective. if there is a cost to join a professional association, what are the benefits of joining? In addition to that, what are reasonable prices for memberships for people to join today? Melinda, would you mind starting us off?
Oh, you want to talk money, girl. All right. I really think the first thing you have to do is decide what your needs are and what's the value of that membership, because it varies. So for the National Black MBA, your membership is a national membership, but your connection is local. So an example would be, if you are a professional, your membership is going to be range anywhere from $150 to $200 a year. And what that membership gives you is not only all of our content and programming, but access to the experiences with our events, both local and national. In addition to that, it's the access to the resources and relationships we have through our corporate partners. So when you think about $150 to $200 membership annually, that's 10, 20, less than 20 bucks a month for just connecting, being amongst the community that you may decide that those are the type of clients you want to be connected to. The other part of it is, if you are an entrepreneur, our membership cost is $150. And I would tell you it pays dividends in one experience. And another example outside of the National Black MBA is when you think about the memberships you want to be a part of. So an example would be, right now I am currently evaluating, is it worth me joining, gaining a membership at the Soho House? What I'm first going to do is say, what are the type of members they have? What kind of executions and experiences do they create? And does it make sense for me to grow professionally, but also does it add value for my clients? Because to Christina's point is, if you have a servant heart and spirit, it's not just about what can I gain from the experience, what additional value would this membership bring to my clients as well?
That is a phenomenal point. Amazing. The value. So I think that's going to help the participants that are on this call. The value, not necessarily looking at the price, but the value and what you're getting. Michelle, if you wouldn't mind sharing, I know you've been a part of several organizations and associations. How were you able to determine what you could afford and what would be worth your time?
Yeah, so I think that when I was thinking about these networks and these investments, most of the things that I did were either they would provide me funding as an entrepreneur and they would invest into the business, right? I think the only thing that I did decide to pay for was the Inner City Capital Connection program. And so it was really just like a gift to myself. And I got on a 5 a.m. flight to Boston it was like 20 degrees, it was terrible. And then same day flew out, and it was a 1-day conference and they paid for everything else. But there are so many free resources that are available. Also, with the Tory Burch Foundation, I mentioned a couple of things. I mentioned the fellowship program, which is for only 50 entrepreneurs a year, but they also have built out a really powerful resource bank of everything, like how to grow your business online, again, how to be financially fit, like what are the things that you should be doing as an entrepreneur, all free, taught by top experts, and basically reusing content that they've built out for the Tory Burch Foundation Fellows. They also have something called the Embrace Ambition Summit. So it is something that you apply for. So it's maybe a 1-page application, and you get a free like 1-day conference that usually happens in New York. It just happened this past March. It'll probably be remote this upcoming year. And then I think there are so many resources that are available. I was really involved with my local government when I was in DC and just leaned in. So I think things like the ChiBizHub are such amazing resources that we just need to take advantage and leverage.
Christina, if you wouldn't mind sharing with the audience more about your experience with how do you identify which associations are worth your time, and how can they, actually budget towards ones they want to participate in?
I mean, I'll be honest. I think Melinda and Michelle pretty much covered everything, so I don't want to just be redundant here. What I will say, you all should really consider looking at your local chamber of commerce, especially if they're active. Their fiduciary responsibility is to serve the business population, so that would be the one I would point to for business purposes.
Thank you, everyone. I want to make sure if there are any I know, Michelle, you mentioned that, and I put it in the chat box, the Tory Burch Foundation applications are open, so they're due very soon, November 12th. But Melinda and Christina, if there are any applications that are coming up, or any of that sort of what potential mixers, I know everything's virtual right now, but any opportunity for our participants to get involved, please include it in the chat box. Want to make sure, and then also please include, if you're okay with it, for folks to connect with you after this webinar because they really enjoyed what you had to share about your own personal career. Please do so via the chat box for everyone. I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and remind you all that a recording of today's conversation, along with others, are featured on our social media and our special COVID-19 resource portal on ChiBizHub.com/COVID-19 support. We encourage you all to follow us on social media. We are incredibly active on there. I mean, I tell you, when we get those grants or any kind of information, we post it within minutes. So please make sure to follow there. And you can also see future webinars, recordings, grants, and information to help you better run your business during these times. On behalf of everyone at World Business Chicago and ChiBizHub, we wish you and yours good health and peace of mind, and thank you again for joining us today.